The hot wind from the African savannah rose in waves, blowing golden sand into the air, drifting like tiny sparks of fire. The ground cracked beneath the blazing sun and everything lay still in suffocating silence, except for the soft crunch of tires over the dusty red road. A dusty gray SUV crept quietly over each pothole. Behind the wheel was Justin, a young veterinarian and volunteer pilot. Beneath his wrinkled shirt and worn khaki cap were light brown eyes that always held a calm, empathetic glow. A man who had witnessed every shade of survival and pain among wild creatures, yet whose emotions had never hardened. He was on his way to the reserve to carry out routine vaccinations for the wildlife. That repetitive task, under the searing heat, had never bored him. It wasn't just a professional duty. It was a calling. A way to give back to the wilderness that had nurtured him since childhood. But then, grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr Justin had ever heard. It wasn't a territorial call, nor a cry of warning. It was a long, strangled, agonizing roar, a plea for help, from a soul trapped between life and death. Justin slammed the brakes. The SUV lurched with a heavy thud, dust exploding around it. He didn't need to think twice. His legs were already out of the vehicle, a first aid kit in hand, his instincts carrying him toward the direction of the sound. No time, no plan, only one thing he knew for sure. Something was dying on the other side of that hill. And if no one got there in time, it wouldn't survive. And that was when fate began to write a new chapter. Not only for Justin, but for a wild creature, bearing a lonely heart beneath the vast sky. Justin climbed over the rocky slope, where the ground steamed with heat like fire, and stepped into a dense thicket of acacia trees. The thorny branches scraped his shirt, leaving scratches on his arms. But he didn't stop. The sound of labored, wheezing breaths mixed with faint, strained growls guided him deeper into the brush, like a cry held back in the middle of the desert. And then, he saw it. Nestled in the withered yellow grass was a young lion, no more than 3 years old, thin and gaunt yet still carrying a trace of regal presence. One of its hind paws was trapped in an iron snare, the classic kind poachers secretly set along the edge of the reserve. The rusted trap had sharp steel teeth that clamped tightly into the animal's flesh. Blood had soaked through its pale golden fur, dripping onto the dirt in dark brown blotches. Its eyes, stunning amber eyes, glistened with tears, staring fixedly at Justin, not with ferocity, not with rage, only pain, and a deep, trembling fear. Justin halted about 3 meters away, his heart pounding in his chest. He had rescued many animals before. Antelopes, baboons, even wounded elephants, but he had never found himself so close to a creature this beautiful, this dangerous, and never had he felt so clearly a soul begging for help without uttering a word. "Easy there, little one," Justin murmured, his voice low and steady like a lullaby. "I'm not here to hurt you. I came to help." He didn't move closer, didn't reach out a hand. He simply sat down, opened the medical kit, and let silence be the bridge. The lion didn't roar, didn't thrash. It trembled, its body twitching with pain. But its gaze never left the stranger before it. Perhaps from exhaustion, or perhaps it understood. Justin glanced at the trap. A spring-loaded clamp, iron teeth driven deep, the kind of snare that could kill even a leopard if not handled properly. He took a deep breath, pulled on his bite-resistant gloves, mixed a painkiller into a solution, and soaked a cloth with it. His movements were slow, unthreatening, as if tending to a child, not a wounded king of the savannah. Good, just a little more now. He moved forward, step by step, until he was just 1 arm's length from the trap. The lion exhaled sharply. A soft hiss escaped its throat. But it still didn't attack. There was no turning back. And Justin knew, the next moment would decide everything. Amidst the thorny underbrush, between life and death, between instinctive fear and fragile trust, 2 beings, a man and a beast, were entering an unspoken pact that the wild had never witnessed before. Justin's gloved hand trembled slightly as he touched the trap, a cold killing device that still clamped tightly around the lion's leg. As if it had a will of its own, the rusted steel teeth had sunk deep into muscle and tendon, causing blood to ooze out every time the animal moved. A wound like that, if not treated quickly, would become infected and kill it within days. Justin knew that. And the lion, he believed, felt it too. He set the antiseptic bottle beside him, while his other hand quietly gripped the trap's release lever. This trap wasn't simple. It was a dual spring type, requiring immense hand strength to open. One misstep, and there would be a hiss, a gush of blood, a roar, and an attack. Justin didn't rush. He lowered his body and spoke in a steady voice. I just need you to hold on a little longer. Okay? You've been strong, don't let it go to waste now. The lion's eyes never left him. Its whole body trembled, panting heavily. Yet strangely, it didn't snarl, didn't resist. Justin gently dabbed the edges of the wound with the painkiller-soaked cloth. Then summoned all his strength and gripped both arms around the trap's release bars. Kreekk. A sharp metallic screech echoed through the silent savannah, like a sound tearing through time. The lion jerked once, let out a strained hiss, and blood spurted in a new stream. But it didn't spring up. Snap! The trap opened. Its leg was free. Justin immediately wrapped gauze around the wound, sprayed antiseptic, secured it with stretch bandage, and gently fixed it in place. He never took his eyes off the lion, still wary of its natural instincts. But the creature didn't growl, didn't thrash. It lay still, breathing heavily, and looked at him. At that moment, that gaze no longer held panic, no longer held pain alone, but something softer, deeper, something close to what humans might call gratitude. Justin sat back, slumped into the dry grass, heart pounding, his hands stained with blood. The lion didn't run. It remained there, watching him, its breathing now just a little steadier. The sunset cast an orange hue across the savannah, the sun slowly sinking behind the distant mountain range, leaving its final rays smeared across the sky like diluted blood. Justin sat with knees drawn up beside a small campfire he'd just lit. Dried lion's blood still staining his hands. His backpack sat nearby, and his hand rested on the hilt of a dagger at his hip, an old self-defense habit. But in truth, his heart had already stilled. Not far away, the injured lion still lay motionless in the tall grass, closer now. Not retreating as far as before, but not approaching either. It didn't roar, didn't growl, just breathed slowly and evenly, as if observing, or perhaps, recovering trust. Justin glanced at it several times but made no attempt to get closer. He understood the fragile boundary of trust, especially with a wounded wild creature. Instead, he opened a dog-eared notebook and scribbled a few lines. The lion didn't leave, didn't attack. It just lay there, as if it were thinking. For the first time in my life, I saw pain without a human face. And yet it made my heart feel heavier than anything I've known. The night wind swept through, sending glowing embers from the fire into the air like red eyes of beasts hiding in the dark. Justin sat there, staring into the flames, and then, quietly began to speak. Not loudly, not commanding, just a voice soft as a whisper. I once rescued a baby elephant separated from its mother. A gazelle that had been shot. But no one has ever looked at me the way you did. You're not afraid of me, are you? Or have you gotten so used to pain that there's nothing left to lose? There was no reply, only a deep breath from the grassy patch nearby. And then, rustle. A faint sound came from the bushes behind him. Justin turned immediately, eyes darting, fingers tightening around the dagger's hilt. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a bird. It was the sound of something large moving. Another sound. Then two more. Justin's heart clenched. He held his breath, eyes locked on the thick darkness beyond the brush. And in that moment, shapes began to emerge. Not one, but four. 4 adult lions. A massive male with a mane thick like fire. 2 lionesses gliding forward like the wind. And a younger one, smaller even than the injured lion. None of them roared. None bared their teeth. But they all slowly advanced toward the patch of grass where the wounded lion lay. Justin froze in place. His breath grew shallow. And his grip on the dagger wasn't for combat, but a final instinct for survival. If they think I'm a threat, this will be the end. But then, the injured lion raised its head, looked toward the pride, and let out a roar, soft, long, not fierce but more like a signal. The pride stopped. The lioness with a scar across her face stepped forward. She sniffed, not toward her kin, but toward Justin. No one spoke. No one moved. Only the wind, the fire, and the gaze of the wild. Darkness slowly swallowed the savannah. Every sound slowed, as if the entire world were holding its breath, witnessing an ancient ritual, where humankind was not the center, but merely a permitted observer. Justin sat motionless beside the fire, its faint orange glow casting shadows across his face, revealing beads of cold sweat trailing down his temples. His hand still held the dagger, but by now, it was no more than a dried twig in the jungle, utterly meaningless if the pride of lions decided he no longer belonged here. But they didn't approach. Nor did they leave. They sat down. The lion with the thick mane, perhaps the leader, lowered himself first. Then, one by one, the other three followed, forming a wide circle around the injured lion cub. No growls. No threats. Just presence, solid, silent, and sacred. Justin looked up, stunned to realize they were keeping watch. Not just guarding their own, but, incredibly, guarding him as well. He didn't dare breathe too loudly. Only watched quietly. In the firelight, the lion's eyes glowed with that mystic amber hue, their gaze like silent torches flickering in the dark. After a while, the scarred lioness moved closer to the injured cub. She lowered her head and gently touched her nose to its ear, in unspoken comfort. The young lion didn't flinch, didn't cry out, only closed its eyes and let out a sigh, soft, weary, but content. Justin was frozen in awe. He had never seen a scene like this in his life, not in documentaries, not in stories, but right here, before his very eyes. Nature was acting with the solemnity of an ancient dynasty, and he, strangely enough, had been accepted into that moment. The fire began to die down, leaving only glowing embers smoldering in the dry earth. The night wind grew stronger, tousling Justin's hair, but he didn't care. In his mind, there was no longer fear of attack, only deep reverence, something that felt sacred. He lay on the ground, not pitching a tent, not driving in stakes. His back rested against his backpack, eyes turned to the sky. Amid the sounds of crickets, rustling leaves, and the steady breathing of lions, for the first time in many years, Justin felt true peace. He was no longer a veterinarian, no longer a conservationist or observer, but simply a small soul allowed to remain within nature's protective embrace. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, the first light of dawn touched the savannah, casting a golden, misty glow over the dry grass and the seasoned bodies of the lions lying motionless. Justin opened his eyes, not from the cold, not because of a sound, but because of a feeling he couldn't quite name, as if someone was watching him. He turned his head, the injured lion cub, still lying there, but now with its head lifted, those amber eyes no longer dulled by pain, but brighter, more alert. It was looking at him, directly at him. And then, something extraordinary happened. The scarred lioness, his sister, perhaps, stood up, walked over, and gently licked the young lion's forehead. A maternal gesture, or a sibling one, or something beyond human understanding. Justin felt his throat tighten. Not from emotion exactly, but from the weight of witnessing. He was witnessing a ceremony of wild recovery, where there were no doctors, no modern medicine, only the innate instinct of love between creatures. The pride began to stir, stretching, yawning. They didn't leave immediately. They waited for the young lion to stand on his own. Justin watched, barely breathing, as the lion began to push himself up. He trembled. His leg was still weak, the wound still bandaged, but he didn't cry out. He didn't collapse. He stood. Sunlight poured across his youthful shoulders like a crown of light. And in that moment, Justin understood. This animal had survived, not just physically, but in spirit. Justin stood as well, pulling the scarf from his neck, taking 2 steps forward. He wanted to do something, say something, but then, he stopped. Because the lion's eyes said it all. "I'm okay now. You don't need to worry anymore." The lion approached. No hesitation, no threat. And then, it gently pressed its forehead into the palm of Justin's hand. A touch that didn't linger. Light as a morning breeze, but enough to make the entire world pause for a beat. Then it turned away, and the whole pride, silently, followed. No roars, no pounding of paws, only golden silhouettes passing through sunlight and disappearing into tall grass, heading where no human could follow. Justin stood there for a long time. No photos, no videos, only memory. Justin sat for a long time after the pride of lions disappeared into the grass. The morning breeze passed through his hair, carrying with it the scent of dry earth, scorched grass, and something that had just quietly been born, as if nature had opened a door, and he was the only one allowed to step through. In the old brown leather notebook he always carried, he wrote, "We didn't say anything, but I understood. I was forgiven for something I didn't cause. Trusted, without needing to prove myself. And allowed to touch a part of nature humanity has long lost." His old SUV was still parked on the ridge. Justin walked back and started the engine. But he didn't turn on the radio like he usually did. He didn't want music to drown out the echoes still resonating in his heart. On the road back to the sanctuary, images from that morning played over and over in his mind. The lion's eyes, full of pain yet absent of resistance. The silent circle of lions around the fire. That gentle touch of a forehead against his palm. A farewell from a wild creature with no human language, but who had spoken through the raw trust between souls. Back at the sanctuary, the conservation staff gathered around him. "You're a whole day late. We thought you'd lost signal. Something happened? Trouble with elephants or hyenas?" Justin just smiled and nodded. Ran into a little surprise. He didn't tell them right away. Not because he wanted to keep secrets, but because he didn't want to turn something sacred into a story. Some moments, if shared too soon, lose their original spirit. That night, after everyone was asleep, Justin sat alone in the wooden hut, gazing out over the distant grasslands. The sky was clear, stars scattered like silver threads across the fabric of night. And then, from somewhere far away, a roar echoed. Not long, not threatening, just a short roar, like a breeze whispering to another breeze. Justin held his breath, because he knew that sound. He couldn't mistake it. It was him, the lion he had saved. It wasn't calling for him. It wasn't asking for anything. It was just letting him know. "I'm alive. I'm strong. I remember." Justin smiled softly. The starlight shimmered in his eyes. Not because the lion came back, but because the bond between them remained, even as they now belonged to different worlds. A week had passed since that fateful dawn. Justin had returned to his daily rhythm at the sanctuary, vaccinating antelopes, monitoring a herd of water buffalo infected with disease, checking the GPS collars on elephants. But no matter what his hands were doing, his mind kept drifting back to those eyes. The amber eyes of the wounded lion, and that gentle touch of its forehead, like a wordless thank you. He didn't tell the team the full story, at least, not in detail. When asked why he hadn't returned on time that day, Justin simply said, "I was forced to stop. Because something more important than any plan happened." But nature doesn't wait for people to tell stories. It tells them on its own. And one day, it spoke. That afternoon, under heavy gray clouds, Justin was patrolling the western perimeter of the reserve with a conservation team, the area known for frequent poaching. They were inspecting an electric fence when a young staffer named Ao suddenly shouted, "Justin, you need to see this." They ran over. In the red dust lay a clear lion track. Not just one print, but a whole trail. The tracks led straight toward the old hill, where Justin had first heard the cry. But what made his heart stop was this. Among the prints, there was one noticeably larger paw print, moving in parallel, likely from a dominant male. And under one of the rear paw marks, a faint drag. As if that leg had once been wounded, and was only recently healed. Justin's heart clenched. It's him. There's no mistaking it. He's coming back. That evening, while doing a solo inspection of the watchtower, Justin stood atop the wooden platform, eyes scanning the horizon where the earth and sky blurred into one. There was nothing, only darkness and stillness. But then, the wind shifted. And in that shift, he heard it. A roar. Not loud, not angry, just a low, short sound, like a single heartbeat in a hollow chest. This time, Justin didn't smile. He simply closed his eyes, placing a hand over his chest, where his heart trembled, as if answering back. He didn't need to see the lion again. Didn't need to touch him. Because now, he was leaving tracks, not in the dirt, but inside Justin. The next morning, Justin decided to do what no one on the team had advised him to do. Return to the place where it all began. Not as part of a patrol. Not for work. He brought only a small backpack, some water, a first aid kit, and one thing he couldn't go without: faith. The old SUV roared over the rocky roads, dust covering the windshield like a curtain of the past rising again. Justin didn't play music, didn't wear headphones. He let the wind and memory guide him. And then, the hill appeared. The place where he'd first heard the roar. The place where he'd knelt beside a rusted trap. The place where fire had burned between a circle of lions, and between two worlds. Justin stopped the car at the foot of the hill and walked up like a pilgrim. The grass had grown back. The old tire tracks were gone. But everything inside him remained intact, just as it had been that day. He reached the patch of grass where the lion had once lain. He knelt. There was no lion, no trace, not a single sound. But there was wind. And something else. A very clear feeling that he was not alone. Justin sat down. He pulled a small object from his backpack, a piece of the rusted trap he had kept from that day. Part of the very trap he had pried open. He had meant to throw it away long ago. But somehow, his hands had never let go. He placed the shard gently on the ground. Then said, "I didn't come here for anything. Only to remind this land. I remember. I kept my word. I never lied to nature." And at that very moment, a soft sound. The crack of a dry twig. Justin turned his head. Not too fast. From the edge of the brush, a shape emerged. It didn't charge. It didn't growl. The lion. Larger now. Stronger. Its mane fuller. Shimmering like golden sunlight. Its hind leg still bore a faint scar, but it walked upright. Proudly. No longer limping. Justin didn't stand. Didn't wave. He simply sat still. Eyes meeting eyes. Amber met earthen brown. And then, the lion stepped forward. Not as close as during that first encounter. But just close enough for both to know. We both survived. And we are, still friends. The lion stood before Justin, tall. Silent. Like a living statue carved from the very hues of dusk. The wind swept through its mane. Each strand rippling like gentle ocean waves. Not like a predator. But rather, a spirit guarding the savannah. Justin didn't move. There was no need to. Their existence, at that moment, was enough. The lion took one more step. Not stalking, not hesitant. It stopped right in front of the rusted trap piece Justin had placed on the ground. And looked at it. A moment of stillness. Or perhaps it was what humans interpret when an animal's gaze is too deep to be explained by instinct alone. Then, the unexpected happened. With its front paw, the very one that had once been trapped, it gently touched the shard of metal, then pushed it aside. Not out of anger, not out of vengeance, just closure. Justin tightened his hand on his knee. His heart clenched, not from fear, but from a kind of profound emotion too deep to form into words. It just forgave, not me, but the moment that had nearly taken its freedom. The lion looked at him one last time. That gaze, like a farewell, not sad, not longing. Just the quiet closing of a chapter in the cycle of life. Then, it turned away, walked past him, so close that Justin could hear its breath, deep, steady, and more alive than any nature recording could ever capture. No roar, no heavy footsteps, just a golden silhouette, returning to the embrace of Mother Earth. Justin remained seated, long after the lion had disappeared from view. The wind grew stronger. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a streak of deep violet across the sky. Inside him now, there was no excitement, no feeling of triumph, but something far rarer than grandeur. The feeling of having touched the sacred. Something humans usually only observe from behind a fence. But now, he had been allowed to step inside. A month had passed since the day Justin returned to that old hill. Life at the reserve slowly returned to its regular rhythm. Reports. Health checks for wild animals. Dealing with leaked information about poachers. And scattered patrols. But deep down, Justin knew, he was no longer the same. Every time he passed the golden grass by the creek. Whenever the wind howled through the acacia canopy. Or even just spotting animal tracks on the red earth. He thought of it, the lion, not as a rescue case. But as something that belonged. One morning, Justin was checking a trail camera set along the southern border. A remote, desolate area rarely visited by lions. But this time was different. On the small screen attached to the tree trunk, an image flickered, then sharpened. A large male lion, thick-maned, and most tellingly, its back left leg tilted slightly with each step. Justin held his breath. He rewound the footage, studied it closely. No doubt about it. It was him. But there was something else that left Justin even more stunned. He wasn't alone. Following behind him was a smaller lion, slimmer, shorter maned, a young lion. Justin paused the video. His eyes lit up like someone who had just discovered a treasure map in the heart of the forest. He has a pride now. A descendant. A new beginning. And maybe, it was that moment of survival. Maybe this very hand, that handed him another chapter of life. That night, as rain thundered outside and the sky darkened, Justin didn't sleep. He wrote one line in his journal. I once thought I saved a life. But in truth, I saved a future. Soon after, he brought the footage to the management team, proposing the southern border be added to the special monitoring zone to prevent intrusions. But deep inside, he knew the real reason. Because one lion once trusted him. And now, he wasn't just protecting it. He was protecting its legacy. That afternoon, the sky was unusually clear. No clouds, no thunder, just a pale blue canvas spilling over the savannah, where sunlight stretched like golden silk. Justin was finishing the last patrol of the day. It had been nearly a year since that fateful morning on the hill. Since the gentle touch on his hand, since the silent gaze of a lion once wounded. Once frail, once caught between life and death. And now, on a small ridge in the distance, under a sunset burning like honey mixed with blood, a silhouette emerged, not in haste, not with noise. A full-grown male lion, its long mane dancing in the wind, stood there, still, majestic, facing the sun. Justin stopped the car and stepped out, carrying nothing but a heart pounding wildly, as if a part of his youth had returned. Their eyes met. No surprise, no need for confirmation. They both knew. That lion, now a leader. A part of the savannah's bloodline. A memory that would never die. And then, it roared. Not long, not threatening, just a short, steady roar carried by the wind, like a greeting for the man who had once knelt beside rusted steel. Justin didn't cry, but his eyes stung. He raised a hand, not high, not waving, just a quiet gesture. Like an old soldier saluting a comrade from another war. And then, the lion turned, unhurried, noble, without regret. Behind him, 3 young lions appeared, a small pride, full of promise. They followed, like the tender shadows of a living legend. Justin stood there until the sunset swallowed their silhouettes whole. And he understood. This wasn't just the closing of a circle. It was the beginning of a legend. A story that would never be written in books, but traced in footprints on soil, in glances caught on the wind, and in the silent presence of miracles that only reveal themselves when humans choose to listen. Because sometimes, the greatest reward in life isn't a medal, nor recognition, but a soft roar in the wind, from the direction of the sunset, whispering, "You were right not to walk away." And because of that, the lion lived, loved, and led a new generation. And Justin became part of the savannah's eternity. Dear friend, there are stories that don't need a climax. No grand ending. Just a single moment of silence between human and nature is enough to stir the deepest part of our shared humanity. The story between Justin and the lion cub is more than a rescue mission. It's a reminder that, no matter how vast the distance between humankind and the wild, there are still places where hearts can meet. In trust, in empathy, and in presence. It is in those places where a veterinarian does more than heal a wound. He touches something sacred, a friendship without words, a bond without chains. If this story moved you, please like to help spread the spirit of loving nature. Leave a comment. What moment touched you the most? And don't forget to subscribe to join us on more heartfelt journeys. From the deserts of Africa to the untold corners of life. Every compassionate gaze, every kind act, every story truly heard, is one small step toward a more beautiful world. We'll see you on the next journey. Where, perhaps, it won't be humans saving nature, but nature saving the hearts of humans.